So Ben, another test against a decent Step 3 side, 2-0 defeat. How do you think it went? What were your thoughts?
I think in the first half, I think you could see, we were struggling in terms of centre halves looking after, the winning runners that they had. I thought the way they played their shape first half was very, very good. Full credit to them. I think, you kind of see the runners that they had were causing us massive problems. I don't think we used our advantage, which was a little bit of a disappointment to see, because if you go back to my interview from Saturday, we looked at something in the first half that was struggling against the shape that Wingate played. Flip it on its head tonight, we played against a diamond in midfield with a back four. And didn't use it to our advantage until the last 10 minutes of the game, when we could start getting the widies out and causing a threat in 2v1 areas, down the sides. And that was a little bit disappointing that, you can all see it, they're trying to give the info, but the players on the pitch didn't really come to grips with it. That was, a tough one to take. But I think second half we looked a lot more assured defensively. I know we've conceded another goal, but, offside for me kind of all day long. You've obviously got to look at the passages prior to that. I thought second half we weren't as much of a threat going forward. You could obviously see Flo was tiring. We made a few changes just to manage people's minutes, and I think in the second half, midfield we didn't really get as much of the ball. So there's a lot of there's positives, there's negatives. But yeah, credit to them first half, because they caused us massive problems with a lot of runners in behind us.
So we finish now with 2 games against Step 4 opposition, which is probably a good way to end, because it'll give us a real idea of kind of where we are. Obviously, you're going back to Northwood on Saturday. You're looking forward to that one? Yeah,
for sure. I think you can only see that the staff and a lot of the playing squad is made up of a lot of friends of mine, a lot of people that have worked with me in the past. I've kind of always had a bit of a love for them, because Ian and Alan gave me my first opportunity to be a manager. They were the first people to kind of trust me within that role. So it's I've always got a lot to kind of pay them back for. So it'd be good to go and see them. I know Ian works very, very hard on their pitch throughout the summer. He's there every day, moving the sprinkler around on his own. So fair play. So it'd be nice to go and play on a nice grass pitch. And I know Jack, and Dennis and JJ have assembled a good squad that will be nice and competitive in their league, so it'll be a very, very good test for us. And then obviously we welcome Rainers Lane, who've had a good pre-season themselves. I know Scott's had a big rebuild down there, so it'll be a good test, both games, to see where we're at in terms of what we're going to be doing for going forward.
So finally, personnel-wise, it's all coming together. I think we can see that off the pitch. There's probably 2 or 3 positions that are still up for grabs. Are you happy with where you are right now? Is there, players you still want to try and get in?
I would say yes and no. The reason I'd say yes is, one, because in our situation, I always knew recruitment was going to be difficult, because we've come from 3 to 4. Mm-hmm. We're a team that's come down with a lot of quality that we had towards the back end of the season that we tried to build in a short period of time. And there's a lot of boys that if you'd have kept that whole squad, you'd have been in a very, very good position. Straight away, you're not going to be able to do that. Having said that, I've always said, sometimes you've got to play the long game. You understand that players want to play as high as possible. I'm a big believer of that. It goes down all the way through to the coaches, to the managers. Everyone wants to play and be involved in football at the highest level. So you allow them to go on their trials. You kind of wish them all the best, and you let them know that the door's open. And you've seen that with a couple of that have returned. Yeah. Without naming any names at the moment. So the long game, sometimes you have to play. And that's where it flips to the no, is the fact that sometimes you're maybe just holding out for a potential player that's, gives you the call and said, look, it's not worked out where I've tried to go and play. I really enjoyed my time with you. Can I come back? And that's kind of where we've been at with certain positions. I think especially at centre half, we know we haven't locked that position down yet. We've been quite vocal about that. I think at a right back position as well. Although the one that we have got through the door, I think has done reasonably well since he's come in. I think left side, you know, you've got two players in, you know, T and Brad that have kind of been battling it out so far, and I think we're okay there. Middle of the pitch going forward, you look on paper, there's a lot of quality, and a lot of players that, you know, you probably wouldn't have expected to potentially be at this level. Problem is, it's okay having names in your side. You've got to make them work and make them gel, and, you know, find the right formation to suit the type of player that they are. So yeah, it's a bit of a yes and no answer, but yeah, I think we've had to play the long game slightly more than I'd like to hope. Obviously, if you're going up into a new division, you're kind of 90% you're going to keep the nucleus of your squad because everybody's happy, and everybody wants that taste of that next level. Coming down is always a little bit more difficult. So yeah, we are getting there, but maybe it's taken slightly longer than we thought.